Welcome to the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast, the show dedicated to bring you the news from the oil patch deep in the heart of Texas, with your hosts, Ryan Ray and Josh Shelton.
And we're back with the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast. We appreciate you tuning in to today's episode. This is episode 205. I'm your host, Josh Shelton, my friend and co-host, Ryan Ray. Ryan, we got news on the pipeline. It was hacked. They paid ransoms.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the pipeline. We're going to talk about the pipeline. And I got to talk about something real quick. And before I get into it, I think your mic is coming through your thing there. So it's rubbing your collar. So it's coming through there. So might want to switch your microphone. I realize we got on here. I'll mute you while you're doing that. Just let's recap for last week. Josh offered to work with the Dark Side group out of Russia or East Europe or wherever they're at around the world. China, I don't know. Africa, I have no idea. He offered to his services. Shortly thereafter, it was announced that they got a $5 million check. So my first question is, Josh, why did you go for such a little dollar? Like, or was that just your cut, the $5 million? Because it feels like you could have gotten more than $5 million off the deal.
It's a one-man show, man. It's kind of like the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast.
Oh man. Oh, shots fired. Wow. That hurts. Whew. So, well, it was interesting to see that, the podcast goes out and then like the next day or whatever, they strike a deal. And I mean, you're back this week. So obviously,
feeling good this week, man. Ready to go fishing. We didn't lace the pockets. Yeah, we better watch out though. We might get the SEC calling for real if we don't watch FBI.
I had nothing to do with this. This is all him. So other thing, Josh, is that came out was WELP WELP magazine released the top 20 gas podcasts of 2021. Now, I don't know if these are ranked in order or not. It doesn't say if they are or not, but the number two
for the first one, then it's definitely in order.
It's the second one, which has me confused. The first one is Buddha at the gas pump. Buddha at the gas pump. I hadn't heard of that one. Good for Buddha at the gas pump. But the second one is your boys here at the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast. So I will share that link out. Thanks for the folks at WELP for hooking us up with on as one of the best oil and gas gas podcasts there are. And so it's an honor for that. And anyways, man, and we got Jay Young coming on the show here in a little bit. Sure he'll be fired up as always.
The legend. Mr. Young. Yeah, it's been a while since we had him on. So Ryan, right now, as I'm looking at the oil prices, WTI crude is at 66.07. There's an article that I'll have referenced here in a bit that says due to some cautions about inflation that the oil prices dropped down to 64. But it looks like they're back up for the day already, and the market seems to be holding steady.
Yeah, we talked to Ben and I had this little morning show we're trying out, and this morning one of the things I talked about was kind of now where we're at, and I don't think this is a particularly Joe Biden issue. I think Trump would have been in the same boat, but last week the news came out that we had some bad job numbers. There's some inflation news that you just referenced, and then what, the next day or the day after, the CDC comes out and says, hey, no need for masks anymore.
Yeah.
And so at the timing was kind of weird, if like just saying, like, timing was kind of weird. And so I think where we're at right now with economic indicators and stuff is that there's plenty of negative economic indicators and plenty that are showing signs of recovery. And the basis of our economy, or our dollar at least, is the belief in our dollar, our economy, right? So our currency is backed by the belief in said currency.
Yeah.
And so, the government, I think Trump would be in the same boat here because of what happened last year, that they have to try to put out as much positive news as possible to make sure that the faith in the U.S. dollar and the U.S. economy is still there. And if those bad indicators wouldn't come out, I'm not so sure we would have seen the mask stuff roll back so quickly. However, the bad news comes out. It's like, okay, well, we've got to get this economy going. So roll back the mask and let's see if that helps. Because as we know, Texas was criticized for their Neanderthal thinking back in whatever it was when Abbott uplifted the mask stuff. But that seemed to have no bearing on our COVID stuff since then. So it's just interesting to kind of watch how this unfolds. And as far as oil prices go, obviously the better the economy is doing, the more stable, or the potential for stronger oil prices or stable oil prices is there. And so that is the one shining light through all this.
Yeah. So 15 days of flatten the curve. We are at 1 year and 3 months, 2.5 months.
I think the curve's officially flattened, right?
Yeah, we have flattened the dog crap out of that curve, boy.
It is one with the asphalt now.
Yeah, I think there was Abbott put out a tweet yesterday where he said that COVID deaths were 0 yesterday in Texas, and I believe Clay Travis retweeted Neanderthal thinking there. So
yeah. Well, and that's the thing with all this COVID stuff is that it's been so politicized now that you can't. Is Biden going to walk back his comments from whenever they were a month or 2 months ago, whenever that was now? No, he's not going to walk it back. The CDC is just going to change their stuff, and so it makes it tough if you're not a real news hawk to kind of figure out what's going on. So, but in all seriousness, let's get back to the Colonial deal. $5 million. That seems a little low, right?
Well, so here's the thing. The reason that I think that it might not be low is because there's no guarantee that they're actually going to give the information back. So I don't know that Colonial would have been willing to do much more. I think keeping it a low number makes Colonial be like, it's not going to make or break us. This is, on the grand scheme of things, this is just a blip on the radar for us. I think if they would
go ahead.
I was about to say if they would have asked for too much, it would have been, well, we don't have any guarantee that they're going to give us information, so it's too risky to give them much more than that. So it seems like the number is low enough where might be worth the risk of paying it. That's kind of how.
Yeah. Oh, there's hey Stu, and Stu. I was on Stu's show last week. Yes, it's about fracking a well, and he goes, "Fracked a well." WHALE. So yes, no, not frack a well over the weekend, Stu. But I hope you had a good one. So after our show last week, what I found interesting was, or maybe it's during our show, I can't remember. But anyways, Dark Side came out and it was like, "Oh my goodness gracious, we didn't realize, how bad of a thing this was. We didn't mean to cause all these problems." And that's really weird because hackers, they kind of go for the throat when they're going for it, right? They're not looking to get like one file. They're looking to
WikiLeaks you.
Yeah, right. They're looking. So I feel like they kind of got sent a message like, "Hey, walk outside, look above. You see the drone? Like, leave this alone." And so that's kind of my read on it. Again, that's just pure speculation. And so you get the $5 million payoff. It makes you kind of think, okay, maybe there's a little bit of government pressure or negotiating to get the deal done. Whereas Darkside kind of knew that if they didn't do a deal, that they and they still might just disappear. And Colonial kind of had the assurances that you're speaking of, that if they didn't turn over everything, then the Russians, because I think the Russians, I can't remember if they ever determined where Darkside was, but wherever these people are located, Biden could have justifiably bombed them as a threat to national security, right? And so he could have said, "Hey, this is a threat to national security. You're starting a war with us. We're going to go bomb you." So I think that probably was a little back channel negotiation happening there that allowed for this payoff to happen for $5 billion, because it seems extremely low. But maybe not. Maybe they're just nice guys. Maybe they're the nicest hackers in the world.
Well, so I was reading the reports when it came out over the weekend, and it said that when they released to them the encryption key or whatever for them to fix it, that it was so outdated that it ended up not really working. They had to go reboot their system anyway. So I don't think that it was I don't know enough about how the security systems operate
Mhm.
to fully digest everything that it said, and I think they're trying to keep a lot of it under wraps anyway. But it seems that it took a while for them to fix the issue because they rolled it out in waves, and I believe that as of this morning, let's see. There's an article that U.S. fuel crisis eases as Colonial Pipeline recovers from cyber attack. So, as of today, at 4:15 a.m., the gasoline shortages have been improving drastically.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, yeah, right. Because now it's starting to flow, and so you know, it's it has been interesting because you feel like um, there's been so you have gasoline prices, and then you have oil prices, and obviously there's a connection there, and then you have the spike from the shutdown, and I'm not really sure what oil and gas folks are wanting right now because some are wanting to blame Biden for the higher gasoline prices. Okay. Now the spike last week, we can set that aside for half a second. But the oil prices are up. So is I mean, if the oil prices are up and you're an oil and gas, that's what you want on some level. Obviously, there's a point where it's too high. But do you give Biden credit for that, or do you criticize him for that? Because I mean, it's kind of a catch 22 here, right? And this is why kind of some of the political theater that we see is a little bit frustrating. So prices are at 65. Is that despite Biden? Is it because of Biden? What is your answer to that question? And it feels like, um, I saw someone today sent me something that said that they're blaming about remember some of the stuff that Speaker was saying back in the day. I don't know if Speaker,
Yeah.
listens, but if he does, hope you know well, Speaker. Um, kind of criticizing Trump's policies during his administration for keeping prices low. And so the inverse effect might be true is that a Democrat, because he's going to be more regulation, is going to raise the prices. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just it could be the result. And um, so if you're frustrated that Biden's gasoline prices or the gasoline prices under Biden, well, but those also have a connection to the higher oil prices as well. Again, aside from the colonial thing.
And just for a little perspective on the gas situation, so as of this on the 15th in Washington D.C., 70% of stations were empty, according to firm Gas Buddy. And then it's half the stations were out in North Carolina, Georgia, Maryland, Virginia, and South Carolina. Again, that's Gas Buddy that is providing those numbers. It did say as of the 15th that it had dropped from 16,000 down to 12,000. So it's it's improving. So I mean that's actually significant numbers there. I saw some folks that in Georgia that were having a hard time getting gas.
Right. And I think, David Blackman's piece we have in here points out something, talks about, kind of the choices that are being made. And part of that is that in Texas and Louisiana, where the pipeline starts. And then the further you go, the more likely you are to see outages because if there is a pipeline shutdown, well, the further you go, the further you are from the refinery. So the longer it takes to truck it or rail it or however you're going to get it there, in this case, it takes. And so those are, we always talk about policy and decisions and thinking through kind of, how you want to handle stuff. And this is kind of a good example that you have this massive infrastructure and it works great. I'm obviously pro pipeline. But if there is a snafu, then these are some of the consequences that you just have to deal with. And but I'm curious, do you have a problem with these guys paying $5 million the ransom?
I have a problem with it because from this standpoint, everybody, they're probably dealing with the kindergarten, the JV team. The group that are the real killers here are going to see them make $5 million and think you should have went for $500 million. So I got a feeling they're coming. I got a feeling you got some hard hitters are going to be coming after them now. Now that it's out there that pipelines pay ransoms and a whole country is dependent on these sources. $500 million for what it would cost for us to be without 50% of the fuel for those 17 states is not nearly as much as the cost would be. So that's the thing. If we said no, we don't negotiate with terrorists or whatever, and we would have taken that approach, it would have discouraged other people from trying it.
Yeah, the problem is though is that the Colonial can't go send a drone to blow up the dark side guys.
Well, the U.S. can. I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying they can.
Right. That's where you get. That's where it. That's kind of the problem here is that you have a private company operating a private pipeline, and should the government come to its defense overseas, and if they do, you kind of get into these weird.
Well, it's a public utility, right? So I think the government does have some rights there because of. I mean, that's eminent domain. It's serving. I mean. I'm not saying the government should go bomb dark side. I mean, I think they end up bombing AP journalists. That.
Right. Well, I mean, no, I know what you're saying. It's kind of interesting because the U.S.'s foreign policy is that they don't negotiate with terrorists, but that's not a private business's policy.
Yeah. Well, I was saying just use that as a reference because I mean, Colonial. Personally, they may not have much at risk. They're probably about to lock it down with some serious security stuff, but a lot of other pipelines are not. Well, maybe they will. Maybe they'll see this and think, okay, we have to update all of our security features on all this infrastructure.
Yeah, I see. My read on it is the opposite, and this again, this speculation. I think of all the things that could have happened, this was the best one. They didn't blow up some kind of infrastructure via a terrorist attack. We have a fuel shortage, which was a pain. But if they got paid their $5 million, I really suspect there's some back channel talks here between the U.S. and Russia and dark side that let them know that, hey, this will not be tolerated. And if there was something of more severe nature that actually resulted in like death, I think we both agree that Biden or whomever would probably send the drone over and start, or the commandos, send in the SEALs or something, and there would be people assassinated, killed, captured, whatever, right? So I don't, and I think that's kind of what happened here. And so we understand. See, I don't think that you'll start seeing these more often, but maybe you will. You got to think about it through these terms. I say how I think about it rather is that wherever dark side is, okay. If they're found and we know it's them, the U.S. might go bomb them with a drone strike or send in the SEALs, which means that we're going to go on another country's soil to do this, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you guys are in Russia, just to say that they were in Russia, well, Russia, the last thing Russia wants is us wanting to come in there and assassinate people, right? And at some point, we're going to say, right or wrong, that we're going to do this, whatever Russia thinks. And so I think you start working through those layers, or if it's Ukraine, somewhere it was a little bit more friendly to us. I think you kind of work through those layers. I think these foreign governments eventually will say, hey, guys, you might can hack a little bit here and there, but you're shutting down the infrastructure. You're going to bring the wrath of God upon you. You might want to step away from that, but I don't know. We shall see. We shall see what happens.
Well, the thing is, what I'm wondering is, if you do it right with Bitcoin or some of these cryptos, you could potentially mask your identity. So these people may have an ability to, like, you ever seen people where they call from a phone and they give it a second location and people show up, SEAL Team 6 kick down the door and it's just a phone sitting in there. I mean, you may have some dudes playing some pretty mean jokes on dark side, getting their booties blown off and they're chilling in the Bahamas.
I'm just saying I wouldn't want to be the leader of dark side right now.
No, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. There are people that are more competent than dark side out there. I would wager, and that if they're confident that they can't get caught or be identified, then you have which I'm not sure that's possible either. I mean, these blockchains make it hard to do that as well. So I think there's some protective measures on the other side.
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know how much that is. You can get caught. How much of it is hard to get caught? I have no idea on that. I will say, as their lead consultant, I'm talking about. If you see some black SUVs pull into your driveway, I'm not your lawyer, but run. Oh man, it's crazy times. Every time 2021 kind of dies down, we get some weird story, and so you just never know what to expect anymore, man.
You really don't, man. It's at the very least, it's exciting times. It's exciting times. It's actually fun sometimes waking up and seeing stories that aren't your typical run of the day stories. It's exciting for me at least because I look at it so often. It's seeing new stuff's fun.
The other thing I know we got Jay coming on here in a minute, but so we got Elon, right? And so he was going to take Bitcoin for Tesla, and then now he's not because it's environmental impact. And he's getting into the oil and gas space, right? They're going to drill some wells down there for their plant.
Yep.
I'm curious how that's going to play with the oil and gas crowd when he gets involved and he starts speaking on our issues more often than what he does now, because Bitcoin's kind of one thing, or Dogecoin is one thing, or Tesla. But when you start talking about the industry of oil and gas, I wonder how that's going to go over, because just the other day they're going to take Bitcoin for Tesla. Now they're not, because it's the environmental impact. And so I wonder how he's going to try to thread that needle, working with, of course, using natural gas, we're all fine and dandy with, but how he's going to take natural gas and use it to power his factory or whatever they're going to do. When he gets that criticism, will he be running to the hills?
Yeah, I wondered about that. I saw some comments that he made. He was talking with people, and this was a while back, so it wasn't something that was too recent. But he made the mention that he didn't want to get rid of fossil fuels. That wasn't his goal, and that natural gas was a very good transition to cleaner fuels, and that natural gas was going to be necessary in order to develop the renewable technology that would be needed in order to make that transition. And so his big deal was not necessarily climate. It could have been because he was talking to oil and gas people. His deal was that oil is a finite resource, and that we have to use the oil, gas, and what we have in order to make that transition. So it was interesting hearing his take on it, because it seemed a lot more reasonable than what I hear from a lot of the climate folks. And he was very open to natural gas, and especially seeing it as the transition fuel. So oil, you can transition from oil to more renewable stuff. You muted.
Yeah, sorry. I said the guy makes a living off of the batteries that just strip mine the earth. And so it's kind of weird that he's saying that, you got these issues. I don't know. I always find him interesting. But as he dips his toe more into the oil and gas space, I'm curious to see how he handles that rhetoric, because it's hard to tell how much he responds to criticism, how much he's trolling, and how much he really has core fundamental beliefs. And so listen, his company's built off of government subsidies. So kind of like you with that Ramson money.
Tax-free, baby.
Tax-free. Yeah. Listen, I wonder if we change this to like the renewables podcast, would we get a tax subsidy?
That is an idea, Ron.
I think we're carbon neutral, right?
Carbon neutral. We Zoom. We follow COVID-19 guidelines when we're
socially distant. That's right.
We socially distance. Yeah, we're like on the cutting edge of precautionary. If we had to travel, and we don't, we would even get a vaccine passport if needed, especially if it would give us extra, amenities, whatever the government's willing to give to us, we're definitely willing to throw them a bone on here or two.
Yeah,
it reminds me of that Australian player. the warrior, what was his name? Australian guy, the big 7-foot guy. Oh man, huh? Yeah, Golden State Warriors.
Bogut.
Bogut.
Yeah.
Bogut. He saw some people get censored on Twitter, and he's more so conservative, and he put on there, just for the record, my pronouns are he, him. It's a way of trying to keep Twitter from censoring him,
Sure. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
It's for the record, pronouns are he, him.
I
so just move on to the next guy. Leave me alone.
Oh, gracious. Well, we're waiting on Jay Young. He's in the wrong spot. Let's see if he can get it figured out here in just a second. We had to give him a hard time when he hops on the show in a minute because I see him with things that, hey, don't use this link, use this link. And he used the first link. So we'll have to give Jay a hard time when he shows up. So let's go ahead and hit some of the roundup stuff while we're waiting on
so ExxonMobil plans to restart gas compressor at the Guyana platform in June. They said that on May 14th. Compressor at its Liza Destiny platform offshore, and it was producing between 100 to 110,000 barrels per day while flaring less than 15,000 standard cubic feet per day. So that news is there. We need plenty of that right now. So good news that they're getting that back online. And then here's one that I was interested in. We need to get I just was curious. So state Senate takes up Texas Energy Independence Act. The Senate is now taking up this act designed to stop what proponents say is overreach by the federal government in the wake of executive orders President Joe Biden has issued impacting the oil and gas industry. So I'm love to get possibly get a lawyer on to kind of walk us through the bill and what chance.
Hey, we know a lawyer.
We do.
Rob George, come on, man.
Rob George, yeah, that's what I was thinking about. So
here and come on the podcast. I think Jay's in the right spot now. Let's see here. He's talking to someone. He's probably firing his whole staff for making him late for this appearance. Listen. He comes to the big leagues. You gotta be ready. Let's see here. Yeah, he's chewing. Let's see here. Ready, Jay? Give us a thumbs up if you're ready. He's ready. Here he goes. Jay,
I gotta answer these questions, don't I? Or no?
Well, how many employees did you fire for sending you to the wrong spot a minute ago?
Well, no, it was my fault. It was absolutely 100% my fault.
Don't take the blame. Blame someone else. It's easier then. Man, look at you looking all dapper. What's up? What you got? A big meeting today?
I was on your show, man. I'm like, man, this is. I mean, what? Y'all didn't wear suits and ties?
No. I only wear suits
before. Oh, there I am. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to figure out how do I get this. You good-looking guys. I'm trying to get you good-looking guys on my regular. Because it had me answering all these questions. Like, this is the first time to use this, use this.
Yeah. Yeah. There's our good friend Stu Turley saying hello.
Hey, Stu.
Well, okay, Jay. So for the folks who might not be familiar with you, obviously, let's start off with your resume. You are a big fan of the show. You're my friend. That's the important stuff. But you tolerate Josh. Beyond that, for those who aren't familiar with you, give a quick bio here.
Yeah. So my family's been in the business for over 100 years. Oil and gas backgrounds, Midland, Big Spring, Kahoma area. Great grandfather had 12 kids. Everybody's in the oil business, so kind of stuck. I've tried elsewhere, but man, I love this oil and gas business. We ran a fund a couple of years ago up to over $300 million in a very short time with some debt and equity, and I want to do the same thing again. So that's kind of what we do, King Operating. I wrote a book called The Upside of Oil and Gas Investing. Forbes is my publisher, and I said, hey, you know what? Stay away from the deals out there that are just, that you'll never make any money. My neighbor called me the other day and said, hey, I want you to look at this deal. And he goes, I said, dude, that deal's not good. You're going to lose your money. And he goes, yeah, I know. I've already gotten 2 checks off the other one and it's already in deficit. And I said, okay, hey, man, you don't have to invest with me. Just don't invest with those companies that you don't have a shot. I said, read my book. So we're going to read my book. But anyway, I love the oil and gas business, and I love Ryan Ray. I don't know what to put the hashtag in there. I was going to put, I love you, my friends, Ryan Ray hashtag, but I couldn't. You put an @ sign before the name, or do you put just
put hashtag Ryan is the GOAT. That's it. Hashtag Ryan is Everyone will know. Everyone will know.
You are the GOAT. That's what
So-
Josh says.
Well, listen. I don't know if you listened to the show last week, but Josh came out and said that he was willing to consult with the Colonial Pipeline hackers, and then like the next day they got a $5 million deal done. So I'll let you connect those dots.
Woo! Hey, Josh didn't make $5 million, or he wouldn't be here today.
I think he's trying to downplay his connection with the dark side over there. So
Wow.
yes, Stuart fracking a whale. So,
Wow. That's awesome.
So listen, I know you were one of the few people last year that was kind of bullish on the price of oil. Josh and I were talking about it a minute ago. It's at 3 or 4, whatever it was this morning, I can't remember. So help us kind of from your perspective. So the price is good. So let's start there. But the other thing is that we kind of are getting mixed signals about the economy and the strength of the economy. So you have kind of the bad numbers that comes out from the federal government, and then, oh, by the way, they miraculously lift some of the CDC guidelines, probably to spur on economic growth. Are you confident in these prices? You think these prices are good, they're stable, or are you worried that we might see a dip? I'm curious your thoughts because you were one of the few bulls last year.
Yeah, I was bullish last year, and I'm still bullish. I was really bullish because there's nothing holding the price of oil down. But let's say but now, because I was like, you know what? Rig count's down. U.S. production's down. There's no capital out there. There's private equity companies jumping ship. There's big, huge private equity companies. These companies, they can't even go in the oil and gas business anymore because their investors are saying, go green or you don't get any money, type deal. So they're like, okay, well, the capital's drying up for all of us, and we don't see rig count getting back to 500, 600, rigs. You need 600 rigs a day to really keep it calm and to keep it where it's leveled out at 12 million a day. We're not going to have that because that's just not where we're going with this. So we're not even going to get back there. So I'm still feeling like the price is going to come down, or I'm sorry, the rig count's going to come down, and then when that happens, you're going to see a need for the oil, and we're not going to have it. We need over 20 million barrels a day in the United States. Over 20 million barrels a day we need, and we don't have it. We're only producing 11. So we need 9 million barrels somewhere else. And when I say that I didn't see anything holding it back, Ryan, what I was really saying was there's nothing holding it back. It's going to go to 100. I mean, JP Morgan said 190 in a couple of years. Now, what I think will happen is you will see Saudi Arabia, Russia start flooding the market with oil when it gets over 100. If it goes to 90, 100, you'll see Saudi Arabia, Russia flooding the market with oil again because they don't want $100 oil here. Because when you see $100 oil, man, it's like, it costs $20, $30 to drill it, and you can make $70, $80. Oh, my gosh. So everybody gets in the oil business, and that puts Saudi Arabia and Russia out of business. And don't forget, their budgets are satisfied by the amount of oil that they sell because they produce so much more oil than they consume. They make money. Their country makes money by selling oil. Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Russia, the OPEC countries, Iran, they make money by selling oil, and they don't want it to go to 100 because we're putting them out of business because we're drilling more, and the more we drill and the more we produce, the more we're putting them out of business. So, and plus with Biden, cutting back on, federal lands and Keystone pipelines and yada, yada. It's tightening up. And when we tighten up and we drill less, we have less supply, more demand. You know how that economics 101.
I'm still 99, but I think I know where you're going with that. So let's talk about Biden. Josh and I were talking earlier. Okay, so
how long were y'all on before I came? You said you talked about 3 or 4 different subjects, man. Was I really that late?
Well, we had you scheduled for 10:30.
Okay. Y'all were doing okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you were fine.
Great, Josh.
And so we're talking about Biden beforehand, and so you're kind of getting weird messages from the oil and gas community right now. So gasoline prices are up, which are obviously tied to oil prices. Take the Colonial incident and put it to the side because that caused a spike. But before that, gasoline prices were on the rise, and some oil and gas critics were like, "Oh, this is Biden's fault." It's like, okay, well, but okay, the oil prices are up too, and so are we critical of Biden or are we praising Biden? And you can't. To me, it's kind of hard right now to if they implemented some kind of huge tax on gasoline that directly impact the price of gasoline, you can say, okay, this is Biden's fault that gasoline prices are up. But we don't want, in America at least, we don't want $35 oil. So if the federal mandate has caused the prices to rise, if kind of this pressure to get investors to pull out has caused less drilling prices to rise, on some level, does he get some credit? I'm curious how you think about those issues.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I tell you what, you're seeing with Biden coming in. I mean, the Keystone Pipeline will open up. I don't think it's going to be closed forever. That was a political deal. Anything Trump wanted, I'm signing off. So it will come back. You'll see it start opening up. I mean, we need jobs. And don't forget the amount of state income tax that the state of Texas makes on production. We pay 4.5% on oil, 7.5% on gas. I mean, we pay a tremendous amount of tax, and that's why we don't have a state income tax, is because of the oil. So, we need jobs and we need oil and we need everything. And I believe that it's coming back, and we're starting to produce more. We're starting to come back and Biden doesn't want, California is paying $4 gasoline prices right now. I think in Texas it's around $3 for gas, and I think you can get $2 gas at Taco Bell. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. But Ryan, if it was only you, I would say that joke. Okay, and
listen, listen, my wife.
$2 burrito.
That sentiment when I go.
$2 burrito. Anyway, so but I'm saying that we can't. Biden understands it, but I think he's obviously being political about the whole situation. But you've got to have drilling, because drilling brings jobs, and it's just. I mean, just think about it for a second. If a rig's running in West Texas, you're spending $100 million a year. One rig, right? 2 rigs, $200 million, $300 million. That all goes in the economy. That all goes in the cities. It goes to the barbershops, the restaurants. And man, if you're not drilling, it kills the economies of these small towns, and you got to get back to work. And when you do, it just helps out everything. So Biden will see that, but he's also going to be very political. We're going to see. The oil. I don't know if he understands about how much oil that we need in the United States, and by decreasing the amount of oil production, how bad that is for our country. And when it went to zero or minus 37 for a few minutes, and I was on your show then. Thank you, sir. But when prices go negative, it puts everybody out of business in West Texas. I mean, man, things shut down. Now everything's coming back. We're seeing a Permian deal we love at these prices, and everybody's coming back. We need more. So Biden is good for ourselves in oil and gas companies, but I don't know if he is right for the consumer, because gasoline prices are going up, and I've mentioned that. I mean, I said $4 or $5 is something that if we're not careful, we'll see those gasoline prices by the end of this year.
Well, there was an article that came out that Texas is trying to fight some of the Biden trying to prevent drillers from drilling on federal lands. We're seeing New Mexico, I guess my curiosity is going to be, New Mexico has a lot of federal lands that are trying to be drilled. This ban on those federal leases is going to affect them tremendously. If you look at the amount of money, the revenue that they're bringing in from taxes and drilling, New Mexico is even more dependent on it than Texas is. And so I'm curious to see how the Biden administration deals with, I think, the fallout that they're going to see this year. Either that, or I've misread the signs, because it seems that New Mexico is going to be in a very difficult situation come end of the year, and they don't have the income, the revenue that they've been banking on for the past 6 to 12 months.
No, you're exactly right, Josh. Yeah, and there's a lot of people too that are a lot of rigs are moving from New Mexico over to Texas. You're still in the Permian, you're still Wolfcamp, all that stuff. But yeah, so a lot of rigs are coming, and I mean, when you're used to that much income and you're projecting out, by drilling, and it just completely stops. I mean, it's detrimental to your budgets. I mean, that's what, a lot of countries have seen, and I just don't want to see it. So yeah, you're right. It is terrible.
Yeah, it makes me wonder too, because not California, Colorado has been taking some extreme measures. I believe we had someone on the show, it may have been Stewart, was on just a couple of weeks ago talking about these Colorado rules that are going to make drilling even more difficult. And in my time with meeting folks out there, New Mexico and Colorado were kind of like sister states. They had a lot of similar policies and were following a lot of I mean, Colorado's way more advanced, on the left side of things. But it seems that New Mexico is following in those footsteps. I wonder how Colorado is going to be impacted as well. And if at some point New Mexico will abandon ship, it's going to be something curious to watch over the next.
Yeah, it's when they see the oil and gas income coming down, and they see the cannabis business is not as big as it was before. Because I mean, at first they were like, okay, hey, that's fine. We'll do away with oil and gas. We got the cannabis, but the cannabis is not as big as it was projected. I say, so that is something that is a big problem. So when they miss the money, I know Governor Polis out of Colorado, he's talked about it several times, and the regulations and everybody. But you'll see it come back. I mean, it's like we've got a project in Colorado that we're putting into another fund now, and we're starting a Permian fund. Putting our Colorado deal into a Permian fund where investors can enjoy in the Permian and the Colorado and a couple other mid-continent stuff. But because if you only have Colorado assets, it's a longer game, right? Mm-hmm. It's a longer game where you're seeing regulations and all the different things that go along with it. So not good, but it is going to come back. Some of the best places to drill in the country are in Colorado, man. That project, I still love that project, and I got a lot of my own money in it, and I want to continue that in the future. But it's just they're cutting it down. So see, when New Mexico, Colorado are doing this, and regulations are coming down, and then you see less people drilling, you have less oil. When you have less oil in the market, and we need it, we're going to go to, guess who? Saudi Arabia and Russia. I mean, Putin said the other day, he said, man, he goes, I am willing to replace every barrel of oil that Biden's going to take off the market. This was about a month, or I say several months ago, when Biden was cutting this, federal regulations and federal lands and all permits. Permits are tough. Getting permits are, especially on property that's brand new. So it is. But you're right. You have less supply. And the demand continues to go up. People are getting out now. It's going to be summertime. You're going to see prices go up.
So one of the things, I guess 2017, whenever we started the show, you're kind of coming out of the last downturn, and there was talk about how the industry would move forward. And at that point, it was technology. We haven't really gotten kind of the I don't want to say propaganda, but the media take on how the industry will survive. What do you think it's going to be? Because our take on the technology stuff was you're going to make some advancements, but it wasn't going from like the Razor or the BlackBerry to the iPhone. It was just going from one generation to the iPhone to the next. That's kind of what we're seeing. So I think we're still in that mode. We're kind of just improving the iPhone more or less in oil and gas. What's going to be the talking point over the next 6 to 12 months on how the industry survives? Is it going to be fiscal responsibility? Is it going to be technology still? Or is it going to be that we've kind of tried everything and we are where we are? What's your read? Because we haven't seen that, but I suspect that's coming at some point.
Yeah, and the technology is always going to be there, right? I mean, it's the places where we're looking at a project right now that technology is going to play a big part of it. But it's the fracking, it's the going where oil is already there type stuff, and it's going to be about technology, fracking, and being able to dispose of water. People thinking outside the box. because it is so expensive to drill, deep Wolfcamp wells. I mean, $9 million, $10 million AFEs and not good, right? And people don't have the capital to drill those. Well, they're going to have to get open-minded and think outside the box on a lot of different things. And I really feel like technology is going to play a big part of that. And how do we see ourselves being a competitive oil and gas company in the future, and doing the things that we do. But, I think from a standpoint of how do we produce more oil in the future? It is going to be about technology, and it is going to be about efficiency, and it is going to be about cleaner air and making sure that the gas emissions and things of that nature are taken care of. So, there's a lot of gas that's being flared in West Texas, not as much as there was, but it's kind of good in my opinion that they kind of shut that down.
Jay talks about technology, and he mentioned a new fund he's putting together. It feels like putting a podcast inside of an oil and gas fund. That would be like a technological oil and gas fund, and probably would help. I'm just listen. This is a comedy show. This is not financial advice. This is comedy. Right. However, in all seriousness, I'm just saying, like, put a podcast inside of a oil and gas fund. Like, you could say you're pretty tech savvy, the first one to ever do such a thing. And we would probably as you have negotiated with Colonial and Darkside last week, you could probably negotiate a fee with Jay to get that deal done for us. So this is something to consider, Jay. This is something to consider. Okay, before we let you go, tell people what all you have going on. You kind of touched on it a few times, and where they can find you at.
Yeah, kingoperating.com. You can see my book over there, jryoung.com, jayryung.com. And we're putting together the fund now, and it should be done in the next week or two in regards to, we'll have 4 assets into one fund. We're gonna raise $50 to $75 million in debt and equity to increase the value to 200 million plus and sell. So we'll use debt and equity, get there and sell the project. And we've done it twice, and we're going to do it a third time. This is the most exciting in my opinion. I love this stuff, and I'm excited about it. I want to see it being done again with all the stuff that we're doing now, I think the only missing link is a podcast inside the oil and gas fund.
Again, this is a comedy show. This is not financial advice. This is not.
This is a gong show. This is not the gong show, right?
This is not solicitation for anything. Despite our stunning good looks, I will say though that a $200 million fund with this podcast, you're talking about probably $400 to $500 million valuation. I mean, if I just had to guess, I had to put a slight number on it. That's before your assets.
Josh knows more about the financial part.
Right. Yeah. So
tell me how much it is, Josh. I guess I have to write the check to Ryan, or how does this?
Oh no, that's Ryan. That's Ryan. It does not go to Ryan.
No. Do I get a sponsorship with this, or how does that? I don't know.
Hey, listen, you can have the whole thing for that.
I was generous with Colonial, so I'm willing to cut you some slack.
Well, you have to get that one under your belt. Everything else is free flying, man.
It was his first terrorist negotiation. He's really proud of that one. So, Jay, it's good to get you on. We'll get you all together here in a few months. Check in. Best of luck to you guys over at King, and we'll talk soon, brother.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
And once again, that is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Jay Young, friend of the show. Always good to get him on. Josh, anything else before we get out of here today?
Rob George, reach out if you want to come on and talk about the Independence Act. Does it have a shot, or is this just a bunch of tomfoolery, or is it a serious thing that Texas is looking at? So is it fancy footwork, or is it something we should be on the lookout for? So I don't know. I read it and I'm not sure how legitimate it is. I'm sure they're trying it, but
and then,
that's it, right?
Next week, let's see here. We got a guest next week, I believe. Yes, we have a guest coming on about electrification next week, and so we will get that done. And until then, everyone, keep climbing.